The 20th century was a breakthrough in scientific and technological progress. It was a time when unconventional approaches to vehicle creation were implemented, resulting in the development of crazy and unusual technical solutions that can still surprise almost anyone. While we still use some inventions from that era, there are also those that have not stood the test of time. In this video, you will discover 7 remarkable vehicles that are no longer in existence. The Dynasphere was a one-wheeled vehicle built in the 1930s by John Archibaldovich. Initially, 2 prototypes were built, a smaller one with an electric drive and a second one with a 6-horsepower air-cooled gasoline engine equipped with a 3-speed gearbox with reverse gear. The model reached a maximum speed of 30 miles per hour. The high-frequency prototype with a gasoline engine was 10 feet high and built from an iron lattice that weighed about 990 pounds. The next generation of the Dynasphere was covered with skin, which significantly lightened the design. The driver's seat and the engine were part of a single device, mounted with wheels on the internal guides of the outer hoop. The movement was carried out due to the fact that the engine tried to rise along the internal guides, thus pushing the nose forward. In the first models, to turn, the driver had to lean in the right direction, but later a mechanism was installed that shifted the internal body and thereby made maneuvers easier. Later, the Purvis Company designed a new model designed for 8 passengers and created specifically for use on the beach. Purvis was very optimistic about the future of its brainchild. The inventor stated that it was impossible to control the Dynasphere, and it was impossible to sharply slow down the view. Despite the trick in the design of the outer wheel, it left much to be desired. Dirt, dust, and precipitation penetrated the nose, causing noticeable inconvenience to everyone driving. But the constant pitching during acceleration and braking had a negative impact on the well-being of the driver and passengers. The hovering scooter is a mechanical transport, an air-cushioned vehicle developed by the British company T in 1960. The scooter was equipped with a gasoline 2-stroke air-cooled engine, and a large propeller was installed in the front of the vehicle which pumped the air cushion. The hovering scooter could turn on the spot and overcome even water obstacles. The hover scooter rides, as you can see, on a cushion of air, with this air being drawn in through cowling at the front of the machine by a specially designed propeller, which is in turn powered by a 250 cubic centimeters motorcycle engine. The floating on air principle makes it equally adaptable for water travel. Although the hover scooter is technically airborne, there's no chance of it rising above the 6 inches or so of air cushion. The so-called air cushion is actually provided by air being thrust downwards under the machine, and steering is by altering with the handlebars the angle at which the air hits the ground and by the pilot balancing his weight accordingly. For those years, it was an outlandish design, but not without disadvantages. Firstly, the hovering scooter could only move on a flat surface. Secondly, its propeller was a danger to others. And thirdly, the scooter was incredibly noisy. I think in total this led to the fact that the hovering scooter remained an experiment. In 1927, a demonstration was held in Paris showing a car with special wheels that could turn 90 degrees, allowing it to easily parallel park by pivoting into tiny spaces. The vehicle looked comical as its front wheels turned cartoonishly, but it was remarkably maneuverable, able to sidle in and out of any parking place. This design aimed to solve acute parking shortages in cities as automobile ownership rose. However, while briefly alleviating congestion, perpendicular parking brought issues like accelerated tire wear and alignment problems at high speeds. So this solution did not catch on long term. Instead, modern cities rely on parking garages, meters, permits, and public transit to manage parking without specially designed vehicles. But in the 1920s Paris, this perpendicular parking car creatively tackled parking challenges for a time. Binney Railplane. This is a type of railway transport invented by George Binney in 1921 in Scotland. It was designed to move along an overhead rail by way of propellers, separating faster passenger traffic from slower freight traffic. Binney believed his railplane cars had the capability of traveling up to 120 miles per hour and would offer a fast passenger and mails and perishable goods service. The railplane cars were streamlined trailers for 48 passengers, suspended like a cable car on 2 bogies from below. The train rested on railway glue in the front and rear, and propellers were placed, driven by electric motors with a power of 15 horsepower. The position of the car was stabilized by additional bogies under the bottom, which made it more difficult, and both interiors of the car differed in luxury over conventional railways. In 1929 to 1930, Binney built a prototype on a trial stretch of track over a 130-yard line at Mulgai, off the Glasgow and Mulgai Junction Railway, with one railplane car to demonstrate the system to potential clients. The car ran along an overhead monorail, stabilized by guide rails below. It moved by propellers powered by onboard motors. Despite interest from around the world, Binney could not obtain the financial backing he required to develop his revolutionary transport system. The proposed line from Edinburgh to Glasgow was not built, nor was the one between Southport and Blackpool. By 1937, Binney was bankrupt. He had financed most of the work himself. The prototype railplane lay rusting in a field at Mulgai until it was sold for scrap in 1956. The fifth wheel for parking is a modification for cars that simplifies parking on cramped streets. It was developed by American engineer Brooks Walker from San Francisco in 1932. He got this idea due to the constant increase in vehicles on the roads, and when parking them, space is needed to be used as rationally as possible so that more cars can fit one after another. He received a patent for it at the end of the same year, but none of the automakers wanted to do something similar in their car. The second appearance of this device took place in 1953 when it was installed on the Packard Cavalier sedan. The essence of the device was that, with the help of hydraulics, the fifth wheel behind the car was lowered to the ground and raised the rear drive wheels from the ground. Then, with the help of a chain drive from the rear axle shaft, the car could easily push or pull out the rear of the car. The fifth wheel changed rotation due to the use of the first and the rear speed of the gearbox. For example, when you engage the first gear, the car pushes part of the car in, and when you engage the rear gear, it pushes out and vice versa. In addition, the wheel allowed you to turn almost on the spot and drive up to the garage in front. When you drove into it backwards, you could control all these mechanics using a lever in the cabin at the driver's fingertips. However, the innovative car never became widespread because the design turned out to be too cumbersome. Buyers did not appreciate the system and did not want to pay money for it. Charles F. Taylor was an American engineer and inventor who designed and tested various prototype one-wheeled vehicles in the 1950s and 1960s. These unique vehicles featured a large single wheel, typically sourced from a tractor, mounted in the middle of a rectangular frame that also housed the engine, gyroscope, driver's seat, controls, and other ancillaries. Taylor's vision was to create a vehicle that could be propelled, suspended, halted, and steered by a single wheel. To address the inherent challenges of one-wheeled vehicles, Taylor employed gyroscopes for stabilization and steering. The most remarkable thing about these vehicles is that they don't use onboard computers to manage stability. It's a purely mechanical system, and judging by the home video footage of Taylor testing some of his vehicles, the stability is actually pretty good both in a straight line and around corners. Taylor built a number of 100% operational prototypes, filed a range of patents for them, and it's also believed that he demonstrated at least one of these vehicles to the Pentagon, though specifics on this are unclear. The obvious issue for any one-wheeled vehicle is stability, particularly a vehicle like Taylor's with a platform mounted to the axle. In order to allow the vehicle to turn and to keep it steady, Taylor fitted a gyroscope to the platform connected to a steering wheel. This allowed the platform to tilt, which gives left and right steering. It also resists forward/backward tilting. His creations aimed to navigate terrains where traditional two- and four-wheeled vehicles were less suitable. The U.S. Navy's flying platform, demonstrated in 1955, was a flying skateboard utilizing a direct-lift rotor aircraft with contra-rotating duct fans. Developed in secret by the U.S. Army as the Model 1031 flying platform, it was controlled by the pilot shifting their body weight to tilt the platform. Despite its intriguing concept, the project ceased due to impracticality in combat, being small, limited in speed, and barely flying beyond the ground cushion effect. Hiller Aircraft, in the early 1950s, built a flying platform for the U.S. Army, resembling a hybrid of a motorcycle, helicopter, and onboard engine. Equipped with two 40-horsepower engines and coaxially located screws in an aluminum ring, it aimed to be a reconnaissance vehicle. 6 prototypes were built, with the first flight occurring on February 9, 1955. However, the military deemed the idea impractical for frontline conditions, leading to the program's closure in 1963.